Gym City's finest, J Flex. Yo, this podcast lit AF, hot like my burner. Hankin TV with my nigga James Turner, straight out the Gym City. Shout out to all of Dayton. I know y'all in with me, shooting up third. Bust up right and hit the bird. Switch lanes, spit flames when the drama occurs. But when I get to the pad, kick back with my G, get a bag of grip balls and watch Hankin TV. Yeah.
What's up with it? It's your boy JT, and if I say I done it, I did it. You're tuned in to Hankin TV. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit that notification bell so you'll know when I'm hanking. Don't forget to hit that like button and holler at me in the comment section to let me know you're hanking with Hankin TV.
What's up? This is your boy JT. If I say I done it, I did it. And tonight, like I told you, I brought former Ohio State Senator and former Dayton, Ohio Mayor to the platform. I'm kind of nervous to have somebody with so much prestige visiting the show. But like I said, the reason the platform is to shine some spotlight on Dayton. Miss Rhine McLin, she has a lot of accomplishments. She's the first African-American woman elected to the Ohio Senate, and she's the first African-American woman that served as mayor of Dayton, Ohio. So if you can you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Oh, I sure will, JT. JT, it's just a pleasure that you thought of humble me to ask me to be on your show. This is exciting for me because, I'm moving in. I'm a primitive modern woman. So getting into what you call the digital and technology era is something that is really special. And I'm trying to adapt. And so you want to hear a little bit about me is that I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, mainly between here and Trenton, New Jersey, where my mom lived. My parents divorced when I was very young, but I lived with my grandparents and my father, and we lived at the funeral home, which used to be on Germantown Street that my grandfather established in 1932. So, it's not much, we're just hardworking people that just cared about our community, and that's what we do.
Right. So the people that know how you got into politics and about the funeral home, explain a little bit about your dad.
Okay. Well, there wouldn't be no me in politics if it wasn't for my dad. So how it was that my dad had been a state rep for 22 years. And in the last time he got elected, he was been fighting prostate cancer. And I want to put a plug in, men, you need to have it checked out because by the time that he got it and recognized that it was too late. And you don't have to do that anymore. It doesn't have to be a death sentence for you, men. So I'm just going to put that plug in there for you about prostate cancer. The way Ohio operates that if the sitting representative wants to nominate someone to take their place for whatever reasons, it is agreed to by the minority or the majority leader of that political party and the local party. And so my dad wanted me to finish out his term if he didn't live. And a lot of people were surprised he chose me. Nobody could have been more surprised than I because I was like, I'm a girl. And back in that day, girls just weren't seen as doing those kind of things. And so once I got appointed, I decided to run because I didn't want people to think that my father had made a bad decision by choosing me. So I worked really hard. And when the opportunity came to run for state senate, I said, well, I'll at least take what my dad did and take it to another level on the foundation that he had built. And lo and behold, I became the first African-American woman state senator in Ohio. I went on to become the first female minority leader within the Senate and went on to become the longest serving vice chair of the Ohio Democratic Party, and as well as I served a couple of times as the interim chair, which was the first time an African American period had even been in that position. And so if it wasn't for my father, my grandfather's foundations and hard work and community development, that I never could have accomplished what I did, because I never lost sight of it's all about the people. And let me just say this. And when it comes down to serving our people, you got to serve our people down to the bowels of your soul, because a lot of times they're not going to be appreciative of what you're trying to do, but you got to stay prayerfully focused and do what's right for our people. Our people have been through a whole lot, and sometimes, they pick on the wrong people and try to destroy ourselves. So I used to say all the time, I can't be successful. By the time I get finished fighting white folks and black folks, I'm too tired to succeed. The only thing I can do is just maintain.
Right. Well, you're definitely a woman of great resilience. So how did your dad get into, for the people out there that don't know, the McLins have a funeral home. It's a popular funeral home in Dayton. So how did your father get involved with the funeral home business?
Well, my grandfather came here from he originally was from Tennessee, but he came through Detroit. And my grandfather actually wanted to be a doctor, but he didn't have the money back in that day to be a doctor. So the closest thing to being a doctor was a dead doctor, and that was an embalmer and a mortician. He did his apprenticeship with the Diggs Funeral Home up in Detroit. And from Detroit, they moved to Dayton. And in Dayton, 1932, they opened the funeral home on the corner. It's no longer there, but it was on the corner of Germantown and Krug Street. And that's where the family established its business. And also, not only were they in the funeral home business, they also had a nightclub. And the nightclub was called the Farmdale, which was in Hog Bottom. But that's another story. But that's how we started. My grandfather ran for office, and when he ran for a city commission, they poured acid on the sidewalks in front of the funeral home. In fact, the community came together to guard the funeral home. They also put a black hand over the paper to show, if he was elected. And they also tried to make him out a communist. So my grandfather, along with my dad and some other like-minded people, started what they call the Democratic Voters League to start giving black people empowerment on voting and getting people elected. So if you wanted to get elected from West Dayton, whether you were black or you were white, if you had to come through the Democratic Voters League and get their stamp of approval. So that's how they built the power base. So in 1966, when my father ran, that is when the law had just changed with the Civil Rights Voting Rights Act, and you could also have what they call minority majority districts. And that's how African Americans were starting to get elected to the legislature. And that's how my father got there.
So far as with all your runs and campaigning and stuff like that, especially being like so deeply rooted back when blacks first got voting rights or couldn't vote, what is a message you would give to our young people about how important it is for them to vote? Because for some reason people think like they vote don't count. So when
JT, that is such a misnomer about people say the vote don't count. I mean, there's so many instances where people have won elections by 1 vote, 5 votes. And I can remember the mayor of Trotwood in not just too long ago. She won that election by 5 votes. So Joe Lacey on the Dayton School Board, I think he won by 1 vote. The point is, your vote does count. And when you don't vote, you make the other person's vote count twice. And so your vote does matter. But the problem is, once we vote, we have to hold who we vote for accountable. Don't sit back and talk to me and JT. Call that person and tell them, say, my name is JT. I'm a registered voter and I vote. These are my concerns. An elected official is going to listen when you start off with your statement like that. Because whether you giving them money or not, you have also something that they need, and that is a vote. Your vote's very powerful. And if it wasn't powerful, why would they be trying so hard to keep you from voting?
Right. So how was it growing up in a funeral home?
Oh, I loved it. My best friends were dead people. Um, they never told nothing you told them. And it was just a peaceful, for me, it was a peaceful place. I mean, I watched my grandfather embalm. That's how he babysat me. I sat on the steps and watched him embalm. So it's always been a part of my life. Whereas some people will say, oh, I couldn't do, well, I grew up with it. I don't know anything different. However, now if you come to me and you bleeding, I can't help you. I can't do nothing with it. But if you're dead, I can handle that. Watching people go through the grieving process and to come out on the other side, that's therapeutic for everybody. I think that it used to be, but let me just say this, when I was growing up, oh my God, I got teased so much about living in a funeral home and people being scary and stuff like that. However, I want to say that in today's time, there used to be a time where Black people respected funeral homes, they respected cemeteries, they respected churches, and they respected schools. Black people don't respect nothing as a group anymore on those things that we considered sanctified.
Right.
And that's hard to embrace coming up from where I came from. I mean, there was sacredness about a funeral and death. There was sacredness about going to a church. It was sacred about how we looked at schools and things like that. That is not in today's culture.
Right. So
but we, JT, as the elders, it's our responsibility to help start shaping and changing that.
Right. It most definitely is. So you actually grew up inside of the funeral home?
Absolutely.
You lived there?
Yeah. See, remember now, let me give you a little lesson in funeral business. The difference between a funeral home and a mortuary. A funeral home is where somebody actually lives in it. A mortuary is the business of the funeral home. And so today you have mortuaries. But you got to remember, back in those days, you didn't have no cell phones. You didn't have no pagers or beepers. So you lived there. And if people wanted you, if they didn't call you, they came to you. Yeah, yeah.
So what age did you first deal with a body?
Well, I've always been around me. Like I said, my grandpa was like 5 to 6 years old. I watched him embalm. I ended up going to in Ohio at the time. You could have 2 licenses. You could be a funeral director, but you not necessarily have to be an embalmer. But if you're an embalmer, you're a funeral director. So I went to Cincinnati College of Mortuary Science and got my embalming degree, my associate degree in mortuary science. My father was a graduate of Cincinnati College of Mortuary Science, and my brother is a graduate of Cincinnati College of Mortuary Science. So it wasn't until the 80s that I became that was started to be able to be eligible to embalm.
Okay, so growing up in a family funeral home, family roots, with politics, which route did you want to take out of the two?
I probably would have the one place where I felt most comfortable was running the funeral business. I enjoyed that. I got a chance to use a lot of my skills that I had gotten in school and around. That was probably the hardest one to let go, to go into the politics, because politics was I never saw myself in politics. I watched how my father operated. I was always on the sidelines, and how backbiting and how deceitful and mean people could be and tell lies on you that never had any foundation. And in spite of that, you help these people,
Right.
and you look for the common good, and so I was like, I don't want a part of this. I don't want nothing to do with this. I would rather just be a happy mortician, and move on. But it wasn't meant to be. I started out as a school teacher. I taught at McFarland and at Belmont High School.
Right. So as hard as it was back when you got into politics, as hard as it was back then for blacks, especially a female. So what finally made you decide to want to get into politics?
Well, because my father had laid the foundation, I didn't want people to think that he made a bad decision. And so I wanted to take what he had laid and work as hard as I could to make sure that his living was not in vain as far as trying to pass on the legacy in politics. As a black female, and it was hard. I mean, it was really hard. Because a lot of times, black men they may like black women, but they don't like to see black women in what they would see positions of control or positions of authority. That they can be very difficult to work with.
Right. So you've been a part of a lot of different committees and different parties. So what committees are you a part of now?
Well, right now I really limit myself down to I'm on the Montgomery County Board of Elections, which I think is a very powerful position, especially as much as the vote is being challenged to make sure that every vote does count. And I'm probably one of 5 in the state of Ohio that actually sits on a board of elections. So each county, Ohio has 88 counties. Each board of elections has 4 people, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. So when you look at all of that, there's only about 5 of us in the whole state of Ohio that actually sit on a board of elections. I mean, just let that sink in.
Right.
I'm also on the board of Richard Allen, and I'm also on the co-op board, which is the one that oversees the Gem City market that we have. Thank goodness for that. But what I also have is I do the radio show of Funk Chronicles. I do a YouTube thing with Funk Chronicles where I interview funksters that were of the funk era that maybe didn't get a chance to tell their story. So I get to shine on them. And then as we work on getting a funk museum here, unfortunately, it's not going to be in Dayton. Dayton couldn't seem to see the value of it, but it's going to be in Trotwood, which is great because a lot of those musicians still live in Trotwood. Shirley Murdoch lives in Trotwood. The Trotmans live in Trotwood. Keith Harrison from the day lives in Trotwood. So Trotwood is probably really the best place for it to be. And then I have a radio show that I do on WDAO, called Fluff and Stuff, and I've been doing that over 10 years, and it's on every Tuesday from 10:30 to 11, and it has trivia, and it's also about me being a primitive modern woman.
Right.
I share that with Michael Ecton.
And then, like I said before, aside from being black and then a woman, I'm quite sure you experienced a lot of racism in your climb in politics.
You know, racism, as an African American woman, not only do you face racism, you face sexism. And sometimes the two get all, they baking a cake. You don't know how many layers that cake's going to have. But I think having faith, and I really talk about faith and spirituality, helps you navigate that arena. And being a leader, everybody that's elected is not a leader. And leaders are not always elected. So when you come to being a leader, it becomes a very isolated position, because I don't like to use the term word lonely. Lonely is a state of a condition, but it's an isolated position, because most of the people who are around you that you're trying to lead want what you got.
Right.
They may not want to do the work to have it, but they want what you have. So when you have to, I've always saw myself as what they call a caboose leader. I lead from the back. I push other people in the front. Because there's a scripture in the Bible that I've always lived by, and my dad always instructed me with. It's like humility before honor. He who toots his own horn is seldom asked for an encore.
Right.
So let other people praise you. You don't need to praise yourself. And so I think it's important that you do the work. If you can tell everybody if you can name everybody that you've helped, then you haven't helped
nobody. Right.
You haven't helped enough. And so, my goal, the richest place in the world is the cemetery, because so many people have died without fulfilling what they should have done. And so your goal is to die spent. When you can say, I've done it. I'm empty. It's time to go. But every day you wake up, God's not finished with you, and you got to have purpose.
Right. And I'm quite sure you had to work extra harder, because people thinking something was given to you due to the standing that your father had.
That absolutely. And so, you have, and just being an African American, period, you got to work doubly hard just for them to think you're working. And when I lost my last election, I think I slept for a whole year. I didn't realize how tired I was. It's just that you keep going, because people keep hitting at you. One of the songs that come to my mind, I've been talking about it a lot lately, is the song by the Disputed Truth called Smiling Faces.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that song has just really hit home with me, because it's so true. And a smile is nothing but a frown upside down, and
right.
People want stabbing you in the back just because they with you. But you know what? Let me just say this. If you get caught up on that and you start carrying the weight of who done me wrong and all of this, it only hurts you.
Right.
It only hurts you. So, you just got to pray and keep going and stay prayerfully focused. I tell any young person that wants to get into the game, you got to be prayerfully focused. You got to be tough enough. You got to have some grit about you. Grace with grit, grit with grace. But you got to have some grit. And, it's a time to fight. And when you get ready to fight, you fight for, my dad taught me, you fight for two reasons. One, you fight to win. Or the second thing, you fight to raise the issue. Put it out there.
Right.
But you got, if you're gonna talk about fighting racism and all of that, you do that all day long. You got to be purposeful about what you do. Make a difference. Because when you start buckshotting and all over the place, you're not getting anywhere. You're just it's like being on the treadmill, working hard, but you ain't going nowhere.
And you spread yourself too thin.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be focused. You got to be focused. You hear a lot of people say, "Stay in your lane." Well, that's not a negative. If everybody took care of the space they were using, look how further ahead we would be.
Right.
I was just out today before picking up litter. And when I was mayor, that was a big thing for me, a litter campaign. And when you go to a city and it's clean, you're not saying that the people don't have problems, but you do say the people got pride. And I was thinking, but why are the folks over here in West Dayton importing litter? It's like there ain't no Lee's chicken nowhere near my house. Or Chick-fil-A. It's nowhere near my house. You important litter. You go through them other folks' neighborhood, carry your litter till you get over here. So, and we weren't like this when I was growing up. We had respect for our neighborhoods.
Right. Yeah.
People didn't even have no grass. They swept the dirt so it looked good. But we don't have that anymore. We don't have that pride. That's the part that's missing. You don't see the inner pride of saying, I'm Black. I'm unapologetically Black.
So by being surprising to you that your father had chose you to fill his seat, did you enjoy your time as senator?
Well, yeah, when I was senator, I took on one of the tasks that my dad had started. And he started the Correctional Institutional Inspection Committee. And I visited all the prisons to make sure the inmates were treated right, and as well as the correction officers, and that inmates could have some dignity. And I thought it was, very important to carry on my dad's legacy with that, because that's how Dayton got the Dayton Correctional Institution here. And at the time, Black people they were very angry with him about wanting to put this prison in the city limits of Dayton. I said, but the reason why was because all of the prisons in Ohio were in rural areas. So if they were in rural areas, the folks that were working in them came from rural areas, but the folks that were in the prison were coming from the urban areas.
Right.
And that's how that reached a head when Lucasville had the riot, where they're celebrating, they're talking about the anniversary of that riot at Lucasville. Well, my committee and I, we were in the middle of that. The fact is, you only can treat people so bad so long, they're gonna rise up. The slaves even rose up.
Yeah.
So, in the fact that the people are going to come back out, prepare them to come back out. But you got to look at it. In Ohio, I mean, we have a high number of over incarcerations. But you see, your legislature keeps creating laws so that the prisons can always be full. You always got to follow the money. At the end of the day, follow the money. And crime creates a lot of jobs.
It does.
It creates a lot of jobs, from the judges to the prosecutors to the attorneys to the bailiff to the police to the sheriff to the parole officer to the corrections officer to the warden. I mean, you start breaking it down, it creates a lot of jobs.
It definitely do.
One thing you ever notice, JT, on TV, on movies, or most of the criminals are always white. That's because they're getting paid.
Right, right.
But in real life, they try to show most of the criminals being black people, where other people getting paid. We paying a way for them to get paid, but the criminals on TV and the movies and all of that, they getting paid.
Now we speaking my language because I did 15 years in prison. I remember one time I was incarcerated. I wrote you a letter and you have responded. So one of the things you said was saying, as far as the laws and the legislative. So that's letting people know how important it is to vote. So
Yeah.
what do you think about the reentry programs that Dayton had?
Well, I think the reentry programs now are very important. You got people like Tony Ruby, that is very, very instrumental in working with. You got people like Greg West who are working on reentry programs, and other people out there because if not, they're designed, they really want you to go back. The recidivism, they really want you to go back. And so
Right.
it's very hard to break that cycle without support. And I think that those groups and those programs now are starting to realize and being serious about reentry and what it means for the economy. Follow the money, about the economy and putting people back in to the community. Remember, sometimes good people do bad things, but also there's so many laws. The police get to pick and choose what laws they want to implement and when. Every day, people break laws all day long. It's what the police choose to determine it's going to be the crime of the day. You know, I mean, you can get a jaywalking ticket. I mean, how many people jaywalk? You get a jaywalking ticket. Or, you speeding ticket through a school zone. I mean, it's just so, you didn't stop at the stop sign before you turn right on red. I mean, there's just so much out there that when the police choose to use the laws against you, they got a toolbox full.
They definitely do. You won an award from recreations and parks. So how does it how does it make you feel to see the parks disappearing, the recreation centers disappearing? I remember it was a time that in every neighborhood it was a recreation swimming pool. Now it seems like the kids don't have nothing to do these days.
Um, when I was mayor, I used to have a talent show for kids, and Bootsy Neal, who was the first African American woman elected to the Dayton City Commission, had a teen center that was over there by Stivers, and where teens could go, and it was a teen center. And when we grew up, there was Mallory Park had a swimming pool, had a baseball area. You had Burkham Park had a swimming pool, had a tennis area. And now, unfortunately, most of our parks just look like somebody's big backyard.
They do.
What the city will tell you is they can't afford it. But the problem is you got to, and then, you have the Roosevelt Center and you have the Laurie Center. It's all about, this is where it comes voting for people to have their priorities. I mean, what are the citizens' priorities? I mean, at this time, we don't even have a golf course in the city of Dayton. I mean, they got the one that's in Kettering, but they closed Madden Hills, which the Madden Hills Homes was, it was like the anchor.
Right.
So over there by Dunbar High School. So if a kid over at Dunbar High School, they can't really have what you call a golf club to go right down the street. They got to go somewhere else. Not having swimming pools in the schools, that means that you have to have a parent or somebody that got some means for a child to be able to become a competitive swimmer, which are all scholarships for college. Golf is a opportunity for a scholarship to college. Swimming, softball, all of those kind of things that, volleyball, those kind of sports are all scholarship opportunities to colleges.
And then educating our people about voting. I think a lot of people don't vote because they're not educated. You know what I'm saying? So can you kind of like educate the people some about um the senator versus the mayor versus the governor and what they vote really does?
JT, that's really a good question because it is so complex now that because they're not teaching civics in schools. So young people really don't even have a basic clue of how government works, whether it's city, whether it's township, whether it's county, whether it's state, whether it's federal. And the one area that African Americans really, really need to start paying more attention is judges. Judges going on the bench. You got municipal judges, you have district court judges, you have common pleas judges, you got court of appeals judges, and then you have the state Supreme Court. That's just Ohio. And so we're not even talking about the district federal court and the federal court of appeals and the U.S. Supreme Court. But one of the things that's really frustrating, Black people don't want to serve on juries. And I remember people used to say, well, I'm not going to register to vote because I don't want to serve on a jury. Well, if I had to go to court, I want somebody of my peers sitting on over there on the jury.
Right.
But we don't want to do that. We don't understand the importance of jury duty on how it impacts our people. They be handing out time like it's candy. And because there's a cultural disconnect. And so we got to understand that us voting for judges. I'm very proud to see Angelina Jackson won Common Pleas Court judge. We have our municipal court judges. We have a fair amount of Blacks there. We need to be more African Americans need to be elected to judges because there's a cultural disconnect with a lot of our judges and our people. A lot of the other judges, they see us as dangerous. They throw the book at us. I mean, if we do something hideous, I understand that, but
right.
The disconnect on how we get treated versus how the other people get treated for the same crime. One thing that Richard Pryor said one time, he said, ain't nobody in jail but just us.
Right.
That's justice, and you see it all the time. And just how the news media covers us. And, I give the example, this guy that the former Speaker of the House of Ohio, $66 million, biggest scandal in the history of Ohio. And they hardly talked about it.
Haven't even talked about it.
It's like, okay. But something happened local here, like when Joey and Clayton, and if you couldn't mention one name without them doing roll call.
Right.
And forever and ever, they just kept putting these Black men out there. Like, and I just think it's, we as a people have to start speaking up and calling those stations and saying, hey, You know what? You're not. I know there's a certain amount of news that needs to be covered, but don't you think this is the overkill here?
Right.
What's your point? And that's what we have to get back to is, and that's why voting for your judges is important. When you vote for your, and especially for your city commissioners and your mayors, those are the people that impact your everyday life. Those are the people that impact your potholes. Those are the people that impact whether you're going to get these abandoned buildings torn down. Those are the people that, if you want swimming pools and things like that, those are the people that can make that happen. Those are the people that have when your trash gets picked up, those are the people that have the most impact direct on your life. And we don't, right now, we haven't really had, early votes been going on since April the 3rd, I think, April the 3rd or the 4th. And we have not had 300 people come in and vote.
Well, when is the election is May the 2nd, isn't it?
May the 2nd. The election is May the 2nd. And so, I mean, here is an opportunity that you can do an absentee ballot, or you can go and vote early down at the Board of Elections. I mean, it's, even though they passed the laws that you have to have photo IDs and all of this, but the point is you don't need to have to do all of that to do an absentee ballot. I mean, we take time to go to football games, basketball games, track meets, TV, movies, concerts. Can't you take about 15 minutes twice a year to vote on something that's going to have a direct impact on your life, and especially in this city? You know, that how the police treat you, the fire department. I mean, that's right up in your face. Everyday politics.
Right.
And that's why it's so important in what they call your local elections are very, very, very important, and folks don't take them serious like they should. You know, they get all excited about the presidential, and you know, they have all of that on TV. That's because they got all that kind of money. Your local elections, these are ordinary people running for office, and you have a chance to get to know who they are, what their platform, what did they do before they decide to run for office? What are they going? How are we in common on you running for office? Do you support some of the things I support? I mean, you need to be able to walk up to them and ask them. And there's no excuse on why folks should not get involved in their local elections. Right. Call your neighbor, tell them to go vote. You know, my neighbor, all the time, I'm around in my neighborhood. I'm the one, y'all vote. Come on. Do you need? They might see me out walking, delivering my absentee ballots. You need one? I'll walk on down there and give you one. I want you to vote. I talk about it every week on my radio show, voting. And think about it. When I was ready to vote, I couldn't vote till I was 21. Now you can vote at 18. I mean, and it impacts your life. I mean, think about these kids now talking about these student loans and all of that. Well, you know, you better vote for some people that are going to support that.
Right. Being humble, I know you're going to give me a humble answer, but what is one of the things that you're most proud of that you had the opportunity of changing or being a part of when you was the mayor?
Well, one of my favorite things that I liked doing as mayor was mayor's walks. I loved getting the city staff and the people in neighborhoods to walk through and just see what was going on, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and how the city could make a difference. That was one of my happy places, doing mayor's walks. What I was able to accomplish as mayor was one of the things was that to make sure that, because when I was mayor, and I was during the time where the recession came in there. The money was, it was tight. And we kept recycling. That was something that was very near and dear to me about recycling. We had at that time, we had lot links. I did that program where if you had a lot next to you, the city could make sure that you got it so that they expand your property. Those were kind of things, and from the legislature and coming down, the Korean War Memorial Park, that I got to see what I did from the state level to see that in the city of Dayton. I worked with Commissioner Zimmer on that, and then to see what I did from the state to help with the Schuster Center, and to see what I did with the state to help with the Dragon Stadium. So it all got to come all full circle together on all the things that I had done.
And those all right there are some big things.
Yeah, they really are. One of the things that I really wished I could have done, but at the time, it was the ball was rolling so that we couldn't stop it. And I wish that we had been able to save
Roosevelt.
No, the jailhouse, the jail, the county jail, the city jail, the workhouse.
Yeah.
I wish we had been able to save the workhouse. That's one of the things but it was too far gone by the time I got there to get rid of. But because the workhouse served a valuable purpose, and you can see the strains of what the county jail has been faced with.
Right.
That
Yeah.
workhouse would have been a better place to have.
So you think it's safe to say, I already know the answer, but this is a message for the people. Instead of crying, I ain't gonna really say crying, I'm gonna say complaining about things that they want to change, they need to vote.
They need to vote, and once they vote, they need to hold the elected officials accountable. And you can do that several ways. You can call them, you can go to a meeting and voice your opinion, you can write them a letter, you can email them, and a lot of them you can Facebook them. So in today's time, there's no excuse on how you can't reach somebody and contact them. But you got to not only vote, you got to hold them accountable. And they can't read your mind. What happens now, we have a lot of elected officials who have their own agenda. It ain't about the people's agenda, it's about their agenda.
Right. So that's when the people need to hold them accountable.
Yeah, we got to hold them accountable. I'm very upset with how where the fire was and the 5 people who died on Broadway and Negley. Well, they haven't cleaned up that trash. They haven't cleaned, but the part that makes it upsetting is 2 blocks from Edison School, which kids do walk home. That's an attractive nuisance for children. Those are the kind of things that, you need to be looking at those type of policies to say, when something like that happens by a school, we need to take care of it. That's just something simple.
Right. So as being a former mayor of Dayton, is there anything that you want to see come to Dayton?
Such as what I would like to see Dayton, I'd like to see the strengths of neighborhoods again. I like the concept of priority boards. I'd like to see that come back again and have some strength for the neighborhoods. I'd like to make sure that our Human Relations Council for the city is strong and independent. Police reform, where there's actually an appeals board that is separate from the institution of the police force and the city, that this is an independent group that when complaints come there, that people can actually believe that they're going to get a fair hearing. I think that's very important.
I know you're ready to ride off on your horse, but would you ever go back into office?
No. I'm at the point now. I did 20 years, and I think I like to see myself now as queen and or kingmaker. That's what I see myself now, as a queen or kingmaker, and to be able to help other people get elected and be able to help them while I'm still able to.
Right.
And
So
we don't, you don't want to stay at the fair too long.
right.
And if we're not going to give the young people a chance or other people a chance to serve, it's never was intended to be your job. It was supposed to be service positions.
So for the young people out there, what advice would you give them that want to get into politics?
Number one, to be financially, make sure that they're financially secure. Because especially for Black people, don't think that you're gonna go into politics and make money. You're gonna go to jail, because they're gonna look at you and they ain't looking at nobody else.
Right.
So you need to be able to if you're gonna run for office, you need to be able to be financially secure. Um, and and then number two, you need to have a base. You need to have, who are these 10 or 15 people I can call that believe in the work that I've done. They know that I've done some things that'll give me $100 with no question, because they believe in me and they know that I'm going to do a good job. And number three, make sure that they voted before you start running for office, to make sure you got a voting track record and that you've also worked on other people's campaigns and helped other people. Because by helping other people, that's how you secure what you call chits. If I help you, you help me. I helped you run, JT. So when it came time for me to run, I could say, JT, I need some help. And you're going to say, oh, yeah, you were there for me. And so, that's one of the things that I find a lot of times with my young people, they don't understand the difference between networking and relationships.
Right.
And relationships, like, JT, you call me because I know you and from the home and all of this, and we got the roots and stuff. So that's relationship. Networking is that we might be in the same room somewhere, we pass around cards, but that don't mean nothing. But there's history, relationships where you have developed history, whether it's direct or indirect, but there's history there.
Right.
And that's important. And a lot of our young people, and social media doesn't create relationships.
No, I don't. You could, because people could do whatever they want to be on social media.
Yeah, and they're facades, and and see that one of the things that makes it hard is that most of these folks, they made it easy. You can be an armchair activist now. I mean, how many times you get an email, sign this petition, sign that petition? All you got to do is click, click, click. You take people like the Carlos Buforts and stuff out there with Black Lives Matter and the Black Panthers and the Chaz Amoses with, I Love West. There's a lot of groups out there doing different things. And there's room for it. But each one of those groups understand the power of the vote.
Right.
They understand the power of the vote. They understand that if I can get some grant money to help with this or that, or the city can compliment me with doing such and such, or furnish a truck or something like that. It's all based on relationships and voting. You got to know who you're voting for.
Right. Research.
Know them. Call them. Seek them out. And the one question that you always need to ask someone: Why are you running for that office?
That's the best question.
Why?
You can find out their motives.
Yeah.
And
And if they start off with I, then you know you got a problem. Because it should be what I would like to do. Because you can't do it by yourself. You got to
right,
work. When I was a state senator, there was 33 of us. When I was a legislator, there was 99 of us. When I was a mayor, it was 5 of us. But nobody can do any of this stuff by
by
themselves.
yourself.
And when people tell you, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, then whether they know it or not, they're lying. Because you got to have some help.
So what was some advice you would give to young people that wanted to get into the funeral home business?
That's a difficult business now. And the reason why is because if they wanted to get into the funeral business, and the reason why I'm saying it's difficult because it's evolving a lot, because it used to be where families went to certain funeral homes, and a lot of your businesses were run by families. There's still some left in Dayton, but you got the conglomerates that are doing business, and children have moved away from home. So they don't have unless the parent has it written down, they're going to go to whoever they come across.
Right.
So marketing would be the hardest part about going into funeral business, if you wanted to go into your own business, would be marketing. Now if you notice, some of them are starting to say not only funeral home, they're saying crematories, because a lot of people are being cremated. So I would have to look at the market to see, not here where in Dayton, because Dayton has its fair share, and
Right.
it would be a very difficult market to crack. But I mean, if that's something you want to do, you go work for one and see if that's really what you want to do. And then if not, you go to school, and maybe you want to work as an assistant at a corner. That might be something you want to do. You might want to go into the forensic part of it. So, I mean, there's other areas to go into besides the funeral business, and maybe you might want to become a trade embalmer. And a trade embalmer is someone who finishes embalming school, and you just go to different funeral homes and they pay you to embalm. So, I mean, there's things that you can do, but to actually start a business, say like in Dayton, Ohio, that would really be an uphill battle. But maybe a dog cemetery might be something that you would be interested in doing, because people, and especially since the pandemic, people's love for pets has increased over people. And I mean, the pet industry is huge.
Yeah. I just seen on social media where somebody just had like a full-blown funeral for a dog.
Yeah.
They had the whole service as if it was a human.
So I'm saying that you probably got right at this point in time. That might be an area that you would want to go into.
And then I know you got your radio show. So what's the message you got for the community?
Number one is, and I say this every week, you don't have to move to live in a good neighborhood. You just need to make up in your mind that the neighborhood you live in is good. Number one. Number two, vote and be aware of what's going on in your community. 3, be kind. 4, be safe. And number 5, and give God all the credit for everything that happens in your life. period.
Most definitely. And then tell the people where they can catch your show at.
WDAO 102.3 FM or 1210 AM Tuesdays from 10:30 to 11 AM. Fluff and stuff. JT, thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed this immensely. And you know what? I really appreciate this about you, JT. You have pushed it, and continue to push it. VOTE. VOTE. Folks, you got to vote. Get your vote on.
And if anybody wants to reach out to you, how can they get in contact with you?
I'm on social media. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. And I would say telephone book, but we don't have those anymore. But you can be I'm easy to find. 937-222-7018. Still got a landline.
Still got a landline. Okay, thank you. I appreciate you for coming. I just want to kind of switch it up. And I've seen the YouTube show, and I've seen a couple other interviews you did, and I just want to kind of just switch it up and really just help to let our people know how important it is to vote.
It really is, JT. I mean, I can't emphasize it enough. And I think you hit another good point today. And I don't know, we have to work it from different angles, but it's educating people on the civics of the politics, from the local government, from the township to the county, to the state, to the federal level, to understand how all of that is connected in your life, and especially starting locally.
Right, because one of the things is, because like I say, and I know you didn't see it, I know you definitely seen it, is I just say complaining. I do it myself, but like the abandoned houses, the streets and stuff. And then one of the things that was most powerful is the jury. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the things people say is it's always white people in the jury. Well, us as black people, we got to start registering to vote and don't turn down jury duty.
Don't turn it down. I've been wanting to serve on the jury for the longest. Even when I get called, they don't ever get to me. But see, I'm gonna tell you, black folks at first used to say they didn't want to vote because of the jury duty. Okay, but then they moved that. Now it's on driver's license. I mean, that's in the pool. So therefore, are we gonna stop driving because we don't want to serve on the jury duty? No, we just need to we need our responsibility. And it says, and this is where you get sometimes discouraged, but you got to keep focused. We want to blame other people for some of the things that we need to be holding our own selves accountable for. And just like I said, important litter in my neighborhood, the man ain't done that. Okay.
Right.
Going to vote and serving on the jury duty, the man ain't got nothing to do with that. You need to do your duty. We need to start assuming responsibility for our own actions. We can't blame everybody for everything. We got to take some responsibility and make a difference. And you think about it. And we've gotten soft, because when you think about the Harriet Tubmans and all of those type of folks up to this day, it just didn't happen.
Right.
Those folks went through a lot, and we become soft. We need to take accountability. We need to take responsibility, and we need to get off our assets and go vote.
I got one more question I want to ask you. As far as being an Afro-American and then a woman at that, and does it upset you when you see that black people don't vote, knowing what we had to go through to get the right to vote?
Oh, it does. I mean, when I lost my election, within a mile of my house, there were folks who didn't vote, and what they said was, I thought you had it. Well, how could I have it if you didn't vote? My own neighbors didn't vote. I was like, why didn't y'all vote? Well, we thought you had. No, we don't understand that every vote counts. it's just not magic.
Right.
And I mean, you watched it. I mean, you watch it, and we sit up and we talk. I mean, I had a friend that we talked about politics and everything, and come to find out, had never voted, and want to always talk about politics. My dad used to have a sign: if you don't vote, you can't complain.
Right.
And now there's a little app you can carry on your phone that when somebody's talking to you, you can look them up and see if they registered to vote. And a lot of, while we're talking about this, a lot of folks that come out of the prison in Ohio, they're eligible. Once they come out of prison, they're eligible to register to vote. And a lot of them, I don't know if they think they can't. Yes, they can.
Right. And I know that for a fact because I voted. And I remember I don't know why I was going around people saying convicted felons couldn't vote. And I used to be telling them like I voted.
Yeah, I mean, that's as bad as Ohio may be at times. That's some good stuff that we can do here in Ohio.
Right.
You vote. And that's important.
Well, I appreciate you for coming through. Like I said, I want to do it, take a different direction on this one and really just talk about first African American being in the Ohio Senate, first mayor of Dayton. I'm also a filmmaker as well. So
Okay.
I have been planning on doing like a documentary on Dayton. So when I get ready to do that, I'm gonna contact you and that's when we're gonna get in depth.
Okay. You know, I do my urban gyms, and when I talk about the urban gym, and I walk through the neighborhoods and I get to see it firsthand. I get to see the people firsthand. I always like to smell the sidewalk.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you for coming through. And I'm gonna stay in contact.
You better. Thank you.
Okay, yes, ma'am. You have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, y'all. That was former mayor of Dayton and former Ohio Senator, Miss Rhine McLin. She dropped some jewels, you know what I'm saying? I think that was that's my main thing, like far as like to educate the people about voting and how important it is, man. You know, we got I don't stay in Dayton anymore. I stay about 30 minutes away, and I joke and I tell people it's the truth. I say, man, I don't come down there because I'm on the highway. Once you get so close, it seems like a black cloud come over your car. You know what I'm saying? So people complaining about, and another thing, I remember I had to go through Dayton around the 4th of July to get to another part of town, another part of the state, with the city, to get some fireworks. For some reason, on the way back, I cut through Dayton. There were so many potholes. So I ain't complaining. I would say that to say, if we want that change, man, we got to get out there and vote. So I thought it would be good, you know, to bring her up to kind of educate the people about voting, how important it is, since we got elections coming up and stuff like that. So I just want to educate the people about voting. Like I said, and it was very historical being the first African American woman as Ohio senator and the first African American female as the mayor of Dayton. So I hope y'all like that, man. Slide through WDAO. That's a radio station in Dayton. So if you're out of town, if y'all ain't from the city, I know y'all got the XM radio. So slide through and check it out sometime, man. Oh, we got a doubleheader tonight. We about to spin right back around here at 10 o'clock. I got Narco Sosa, Atlanta artist, come on. He from Dayton. He moved to Atlanta. I got an artist coming up. He got some dope music. He putting it down. So I'm about to have him up. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. And make sure you go through and check out all my old interviews, man. I'm out. Thanks, Yo-Yo.